Today we're going to have a look at how to make holes, MFT style holes, 20mm holes at 96 spacings, but this time using this particular jig. This is a special jig for use with a router, so this is the router that I'm going to use, and the only particular thing that's special about this is the plunge router. And I'm using the bush that came with the router. I think most routers come with a guide bush. In this particular case, this one came with an 18mm OD guide bush, and I'm using a 13mm straight cut router bit. So I'm really interested to see how this goes. I've done a version in another video using my DIY path kit, and that came up really well. I was surprised at how accurate that was. This I didn't make. You can buy these online. There's a link in the description to eBay, but they're cheap, and so the idea is to check and see whether this gives the same degree of accuracy, whether it's any easier or not compared to the other technique. There's already a few less items that we require. We just need the router set up with a guide bush and this, and I'll show you how I go about doing this. Okay, so to begin with, we've got the jig. The jig's got a series of holes in it. Some holes are bigger than the others. So what we're going to do is, with the bigger holes, these are the holes that we're going to route, and these smaller holes are 20mm holes. So once we've got a series of holes routed, we'll be able to slide this into place and pin the board using these 20mm holes, just with our 20mm dogs, into position, and then we can route again the next series of holes moving along. So that's the theory of how it works. To begin with, we need to line this up on the table to represent where we want the holes and how we want the holes. So it's initially takes some time in measuring this out, but what I'm going to do is route the first series of holes down the middle of the table, and then I'll be left with a lane of holes on either side that I can then finish off. So I'll start off in this way. I think it was going to be easier. We'll see how this pans out, whether it was or it wasn't, but that's the idea. So essentially I need to get this into position and line it up with the table. On this particular table, this side's a straight edge and this side is a straight edge. So it's nice and easy to measure off. So this is looking good. Okay, so I've just completed the first set of holes. I've noticed immediately that I've got a little bit of a problem here. The jig, the two clamps that I put in place were not sufficient to hold the jig in place while I was routing the holes. So, it's not a complete disaster, but I will now secure this with some more clamps, and I'm actually going to screw it to the table. It's just going to be a couple of small little holes, so it shouldn't be a major issue to the tabletop. I mean, it's going to get scuffed anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. But I want to get this second row of holes perfect, and then it'll still be all good. It should still be all good. I should still be able to then, using that second row of holes as the reference, move on. So let's give that a go and see how we get on. Okay, so everything now is where it's supposed to be. I've got 4 clamps in place and 2 screws, so nothing's coming loose in this first set. Alright, let's give this a go and see how we get on. Okay, now I've just done these second row of holes. They look fine from where I'm looking, so let's take this off and let's give it a quick check. So one of the things that we can do is just put some dogs in. Hopefully, yeah, this is all straight. Well, this is a straight edge, so this looks good. So this is a good position now to start going forward. Bit of a bugger, we didn't get the first line right, but okay, we live and learn. But that shouldn't be too much of a big problem in the big scheme of things, because for this table, this is just, I've got more holes than I need, so it's not going to be material. So now what we need to do is, with this second row of holes, we position the dogs. Now they're kind of tight. Get that first one in. Yeah, that's good. Beautiful. Now, this is the other thing that I know that this is now perfect, because these are the 20mm holes, and if there was any inaccuracies in that row of holes that I just did, these dogs wouldn't fit, and they fit like a glove. Tight. Alright, and that's exactly what you want, is this is now secured, so it should not be a problem going forwards with what we had before was just clamped down. I don't know why the 2 clamps didn't hold, but we've now got four of these dogs in place. That all looks good. And I might put one more clamp. I've got one of these that's just a normal clamp with the end bent, so I can use it for these tables. So it should just slide in like that. Now I'm getting a bit paranoid about it being clamped down, but I think that's more than enough. So now we'll go and, just as we did in this area, drill these set of holes. We'll do both of these sets of holes, and they should be, with this clamped in position, it should be perfect. And then it's just running through. Okay, very good. Okay, with these holes done, let's move it along. They look good. Okay, we've done 16 rows of holes now. It's all been pretty straightforward, as you've seen. It's just aligning the jig with the dogs and routing the holes. And we're up to the last 2 holes. So let's do it for the last time. Let's align these. Nice and secure. I'm not sure whether I actually need to clamp it down, but I thought better safe than sorry and use this clamp just in case. This seems pretty secure. There's no wobble in this at all. It's a nice tight fit, but maybe with the vibration of the router, I'm just worried that it might come loose. It may not, but we haven't made a mistake yet, so I don't want to jinx ourselves on the last hole. Alright, we're good to go. Okay, so we've now finished the table and used the router jig. So how did that compare to the homemade path system that we made in the last video? Surprisingly, this worked so well as well. All the holes I've just run through with the square and the dogs, and everything has come up really, really well. I'm really impressed with how it's come, apart from this first line of holes. I mean, most of these are actually okay, surprisingly. It's this hole here that moved during the initial drill because I didn't have it clamped properly. And the fix for that was on the second, was just realign it, make sure the second row of holes were aligned properly, and to make sure that this didn't slip, I actually screwed 2 holes in it, and you can see the 2 holes here on the jig. So apart from that, it works really well. The cons, I thought it was going to be a faster process to drill these holes, much faster than the process for using those path guides that I made. And you know, maybe it was a little bit quicker, 10 or 15%, but it wasn't sort of appreciably, you know, faster solution to the path guides. Was it easier? I think it was easier. There's less components to this. And one of the really good things with this that I wasn't so impressed with how the holes, the quality of the holes finished up with the Forstner bit that I was using. All the holes are beautifully cut at the top. They're perfectly straight, and so from that perspective, you know, if there's elements to this that are better, maybe that is better than the using the Forstner bit. In terms of the things that were cons with this, other cons, is that I noticed when I use the router, and I'm using a straight router cutting bit here. This is a 13mm diameter bit. This, after about 18 holes, started to smoke, and when I had a closer look at the bit, there was just a bit of gunk build up. I guess it's probably the glues in this plywood that just after a number of holes, or it could be that this is a fixed speed router. It only operates at maximum revolutions, and maybe that's not ideal for this situation. Maybe if I had the ability to slow it down a little bit, I might prolong that situation, or might not get as much of the gunk build up and the bit heating up. I don't know. It's just a theory that could be a reason for why that was happening. But it was a reasonably easy exercise to clean up. So after about 18 holes, I just wiped down the outside of the bit, and you could quite easily take off the residue. So that helped a lot. Other than that, that's the comparison. I guess the other thing that's probably worth noting is the cost. The do-it-yourself path guide, there was an expense involved with that. I did have the rulers machined in an engineering shop to get sort of precise holes drilled at 96 centres in a straight line. I couldn't manage to do that on the drill press. So that process with the Forstner bit cost me, I think just the rulers and the machining were $120, and the Forstner bit was relatively cheap at $12. It was a tungsten carbide tip. Maybe I should have got a higher quality Forstner bit, and maybe that's why my holes weren't that great. But certainly that was the expense there, and the rest of the, there's a few bits of wood that I just had scrap lying around to make the particular guides out of for the DIY path guide. With this, obviously you need a router and a plunge router at that, and a 13mm bit. This router came with an 18mm guide, so you'll need that if you don't have one. And then the template itself, you can buy these on eBay for, I think it was about $65. So, and plus some shipping, I think about $15 in shipping, so maybe $80 all up. So maybe marginally ahead of the price of the path guide, but certainly if you're interested in making a table like this, these are two great options, and as you've seen, you can get really accurate results from these options. Just depends on what solution and what tool sets you've got. Definitely if you've got a router, I would definitely have a look at this. I think this is, of the two techniques, was, whilst no faster, was certainly probably a bit easier to do, apart from the learnings on the first hole, which you really need to clamp down really well. But at least you've got now some basic understanding of how to go about this in a DIY sort of fashion. Alright, thanks for listening guys, bye.